grew up in an agricultural household. My father was a traditional farmer using time-tested practices and generational knowledge. Even then, back before we well understood climate change, industrialization slowly started changing weather patterns that put his agricultural wisdom to question. He grew rice crop, a crop for which timing is everything. An early harvest meant that he could lose significant amount of yield. A late harvest can bring him better returns. There were risks. He was confused. He turned on the television to get some insights on the upcoming weather. I still remember sitting beside him listening to the forecast that said, rain likely across many parts of coastal Tamil Nadu. He still looked confused, not knowing whether that meant rains on our feet or 100 kilometers away. And on that instance, like many farmers, he had no other option but to decide based on his intuition. Hi, I am Dr. Kirthiga, currently working with the World Resources Institute, India. I am also a weather blogger and I hold a PhD from IIT Madras, where I have spent years doing research on climate and weather forecasting. The story I just narrated was about 2 decades ago. You must be thinking, with all the cutting edge technology of today, the problem might have already been solved, right? But reality is otherwise. Erratic weather events have been increasing with climate change. An UN report says in the past 2 decades, we have lost about 1.23 million people and $3 trillion worldwide for climate-related disasters. In India, 2024 saw almost every day of weather extreme occurrences, 322 days to be precise, which is a staggering 88% of the year, and we lost about 3,400 lives. These were not isolated events. We are talking about massive occurrences like the devastating floods in Sikkim, the cloudbursts in Himachal, the landslides in Wayanad, and intense heat waves in Odisha. So, the question is, if we know that these events are becoming more frequent and more intense, why are we still taken off guard every single time? To answer this question, let's dig deeper into the science behind weather forecasting. In the recent past, weather forecasting has made some major leaps. We now have sophisticated physics-based models that can simulate the state of the atmosphere for next few days using numerical methods, data from satellites, ground-based radars, and weather balloons. In recent years, hybrid models combining artificial intelligence with physics-based approaches have also become a reality, drastically reducing the computational time and promising to increase the accuracy. In addition to the single value deterministic forecast, many of these models also issue multiple versions of the output known as ensemble simulation. Now, it's more like tuning a radio up or down to get the clearest signal. Each version of the ensemble output is run with a slight modification in the initial condition or model formulation, thus helping us explore how weather event could play out. For example, how a cyclone could move, how intense a thunderstorm could get, adding probabilistic sense to the forecasts. Another area of rapid progress is in what we call the convective permitting scale models. These models can simulate the actual formation of thunderclouds and the rainfall processes at much finer scales. We can now zoom in and get the hyperlocal context, capturing the local variability of weather rather than broad averages across larger regions. India's newly designed Bharat forecasting system does this zooming in to 6.5 kilometer, one of the highest resolution globally, and helps us capture better the monsoon processes, terrain characteristics, and promises to better capture the rainfall extremes. Many of these modeling exercises are still in their beginning phase and would need a longer run to prove themselves. But the technology is there. Why are we still struggling in building robust early warning systems? We are now standing in a paradoxical juncture where weather extremes are increasing, weather forecasting systems are also improving, yet the problem remains unsolved. Here is what we often miss. The weather that we are trying to simulate is inherently uncertain, hugely dynamic. Imagine the earth with all its ocean, land and atmosphere constantly exchanging heat and moisture with giant circulations enabling the overall weather patterns. A small change somewhere can cause the butterfly effect and can change the overall response. That being said, our understanding of the system is also improving. So, with the given state of art, we should clearly understand that forecasting are not guarantees, they are probabilities. When we say there is a 70% chance of rain, it doesn't mean that the forecast failed if it did not rain. It means that there was a calculated risk and the risk was real. Yet, most of these forecasts are often received in binary terms, a simple yes or no. This black or white perception of the uncertain weather is creating mistrust even when the science is there. And that's where the real challenge lies. It's not just in the science of forecasting, but also in communication, especially reaching that last mile. Unless these fuzzy probabilistic forecasts are converted into a language that people will understand, even the best forecasting system might not impart any real change. My research bridges the communication gap by turning the forecast from static data into practical tools in high-stakes areas like agriculture and disaster response. We use a two-pronged approach. First, to fine-tune a convective permitting scale model and generate high-resolution ensemble weather scenarios. Second is to use these probabilistic forecasts to create meaningful insights for vulnerable communities. For example, in the domain of agriculture, we use these high-resolution ensemble forecasts along with a process-based crop simulation model. In simple terms, we simulated how a crop would respond to given different scenarios of weather occurrences and thereby guide the farmers on their local agricultural decisions. The decision support routine was also tied to the crop growth stages, local rainfall risk, and the soil moisture conditions. We implemented and tested this approach as a pilot in some parts of Tamil Nadu through a mobile-based application called Near Paasanam. Instead of vague numbers and technical jargon, the farmers now received simple messages in their own language. The app was also made inclusive to include simple icons and voice-based prompts to help farmers with less exposure to technology use it. In addition, the app also fostered a two-way feedback mechanism where the farmers can enter the data from the field and also give feedback about the accuracy of the forecast through simple click of buttons, thus turning forecast into conversations rather than just broadcasts. This two-way feedback helped us improve the model formulation and thus reach the farmers a bit more. The values speaks for themselves. In field pilots, we were able to improve the water productivity by 20% and reduce at least 2 instances of unnecessary fertilizer application. But the broader takeaway is that we were able to build trust with farmers who otherwise are uncertain about the accuracy of the forecasts. We started using this approach for disaster risk management in cities and towns. In Chennai, for example, we combined these ensemble forecasts with hydrodynamic models to map the flow of water through rivers, streams and drains. We can now have some clear alerts that says high risk of waterlogging near Coimbatore market, better divert traffic. Similarly, in a semi-urban catchment of Kutralam, a popular tourist destination in South Tamil Nadu, we were able to give localized flash flood guidances, saving lives. These insights were clearly communicated to the local disaster risk response team for them to respond and be prepared under the given uncertainty. While the research is still in progress, early results show promise in building overall community resilience. However, scaling up of such an approach would need more focused training, strong community partnerships, and continued feedback loops. That's how we build open and inclusive weather forecasting system that reaches everyone, and more importantly, a system that everyone trusts. Let me tell you a story of a farmer who was part of a pilot implementation and testing of the Near Paasanam app. He had received an alert from our system and harvested his crop little early, thus saving a huge portion of his crop which would have otherwise been damaged by the rainfall that occurred later. Recently, when we met, he came to me with a spark in his eyes and said how happy he was for that once he was ahead of weather and need not second guess his decision. What started as a simple wish to help my father navigate uncertain weather has now reached many farmers across Tamil Nadu. And that to me is the real purpose of forecasting. They are no longer dependent on their intuition. They are efficient decision makers who are well informed of their outcomes. In a world with fast changing climate, it is important that forecasts talk to people rather than just tell weather. It's no longer about who is forecasting it better, which model is giving better results. It's about who is empowering better. It's high time we transform from just weather forecasting to impact-based forecasting. As I continue to grow and learn, I wish to take this experience to many places, touch many lives, and help make science not just sit in the dashboards, but walk through the fields, cities, and homes where it is actually needed. Thank you.